Let's go ahead and call to order the May 7th Finance Committee meeting. What do we have on the agenda today?
So as part of the budget review process for the Finance Committee, the departments bring their changes to their fees. Today we'll be looking at the general fund departments. Next week we'll be looking at enterprise funds. Before we get started, I do want to remind the committee that we won't hear from Community Development and Public Works today, as they already brought their changes in March to their fees. So with that, I think we'll get started with City Clerk.
Hello. I'm Sarah Gorman, City Clerk Services Manager. It's a pleasure to be with you. I just have one fee change I wanted to highlight for the Finance Committee, and that is an increase in our fees for the full printed copies of our municipal code. This past year, our office contracted with an outside codification service for the update and codification of our municipal code. So our municipal code is now much more accessible. It's mobile friendly. It's a lot easier for members of the public to search for terms, to pull up code sections, and otherwise provides much greater transparency. That code is available online for anyone. They can print out individual sections or large sections. If they did want to buy the entire code, then we would be charging this higher amount, and that's just higher because we now have a outside codification service.
And the price online?
And the price online is free.
Thank you.
So these are just directly passing on the costs from our codification service. We usually get very few requests for purchasing. It tends to be for outside attorneys or planners, but generally people access the code online. And I'm available for any questions if you have any.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And next we'll hear from the library.
Good afternoon, Jessica Cadiente, Library Director. I'll be presenting the proposed fee resolution changes for the Library Department today. The first item are our proposed changes to our meeting rooms. Currently, the library has a two-tiered structure where we are doing Monday through Thursday, then Friday through Sunday. We are proposing that we switch back to our full 7-day-a-week being the same amount. Staff did review like-sized venues as well as destinations close to the downtown area to make sure that these pricings are both competitive and fair. We rent to nonprofits, and lowering the fees on the weekend will allow for them to have more accessibility to the space, as those are the most coveted times. And then plaza fees, we are looking forward to a renovated library plaza, and with that we would like to update the fee. And again, we looked at like-sized outside venues to come up with the proposed new fee of $450 for the first hour for the library plaza. Then the last item up for discussion is a fine-free Santa Barbara Public Library. Currently, the library charges 25 cents per item per day up to an $8 maximum late fee, and we are proposing to remove that late fee from our fee schedule. On the right side, you can see the implications of this. The revenue that we generated in fiscal year 18 from fines alone is not that significant. It represents less than 1% of our overall budget for the four remaining Zone 1 Santa Barbara libraries. Some of the benefits of eliminating fines: increasing patron access to materials and services. Library fines dissuade users from ever getting a library card in the first place, as well as create suspended accounts that then children and families do not have access to the library services or materials. And reducing the inequitable impact of overdue fines. What we see when we look at our database is that the users who have high amounts of overdue fines that are not being paid back are in our lower socioeconomic areas of the city, like the east side, west side neighborhoods. So if you have disposable income, you are more likely to be able to pay off those fines. But if you're choosing between things like rent and food, you're not paying the library fines back. And improving the patron relationships with the library is also something that we find very important. The library's mission is about education, access to information, creating opportunities for people, and the negative discussions around fines pulls away from this mission. We also would really like to optimize library staff time. We did a complete time analysis study and discovered that we're spending 10 times the amount of staff time than we are in recuperating any fines generated. And so there's really no return on investment for doing this kind of negative and burdensome task. I'll be talking more next week about our Student Success Initiative, but when we first started talking with the school district about getting every student in SBUSD a library card, fines were a significant barrier to this implementation. Of course, they see the inequity as well. They see that some students would be able to pay fines, others not. And so the idea of taking classrooms where there's the students who can pay have access and those who can't don't, it was not something that they were interested in dealing with. And one of the biggest questions I get asked if there are no overdue fines, what's the incentive to bring back my materials? Well, we're not suggesting that we are removing the lost or damaged item fees from our fine schedule. We're just taking away this daily punitive, unnecessary fee. And this just demonstrates the administrative language that would be updated to represent that charge for the lost materials. And then lastly, I just wanted to share with you some of the libraries in our state that have recently gone fine-free. San Luis Obispo County and Paso Robles are within our Black Gold Cooperative and went fine-free this year in 2019. Really do think that it's just a matter of time before most libraries within the Black Gold Cooperative are fine-free. And I think the city of Santa Barbara supporting the mission of our library and creating that open access to libraries is something I hope you support. With that, that's my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Not a question so much as a comment. I very much appreciate you taking this step. This is something I'm very, very supportive of. I think it's really important. And so I just wanted to say thank you. That's where I'm at on this.
So I have a question about Part D, collection agency referral.
Yes.
So currently that exists in the system, and you're referring people to collection agencies?
Chair Dominguez, we do have a collection agency that we use throughout the Black Gold system. Yes.
So what would this change in terms of that policy? It looks like before it was if there was $40 more due, and we're just changing it.
Correct. So at this point, it is an amount, $40, which could be fines as well as lost items. So that could be $40 of just overdue fees. Now we're looking to the actual item. So if you have an item that has not been returned to the library, you'll then be referred to collection agency for return of that material. And what that does is do our noticing. There's no credit reporting that the library does. It's really an automated service that helps us send notification to users that they have materials that need to be returned, and they're providing that automation for us.
So it's not the type of collection agency that you would see like that repossesses cars or deals with credit history?
Absolutely not.
So, and they don't actually have the ability to do the credit history?
A law
dings?
was passed, I believe, 2 years ago that disallowed libraries from from doing that credit reporting.
Okay. Is there another words other than collection agency? Because I was confused, and I don't want people to be confused.
Absolutely.
Because what you're collecting is trying to collect the book or the replacement money for the book.
Recovery.
Okay.
Recovery.
So, and is that something that we would need to review that language? Or is this just internal?
This is on our city fee schedule.
Okay.
So we're presenting to the full council on Monday. I'd be happy to update it and present it then.
That would be my only comment, but I agree with Councilmember Harmon. I think these are great changes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'll just chime in. The full when we bring the budget for adoption in June, we would bring the revised fee resolution with all included language in there too. So you'd have a second chance then. Okay, next we'll hear from the police department.
Good afternoon, Lori Peterson, Business Manager, Police Department. This year we're bringing before you quite a few changes across many different areas in the Police Department in categories for fees, fines. The first, Went backwards. We've done some incremental increases as the years have gone by. The expenses for issuing citations, processing licenses, staffing time have increased, and so we're trying to keep pace with that or catch up. There are several different categories, and these are some of them. The first one that we're going to be talking about is animal control fees. And so there are two different types. There's altered and unaltered animals, and so that's why there are two different ways that you're seeing this. The fees are reflected on the left-hand side are the current fees that are being paid, and then the proposed fees are on the right-hand side. So at the top end, if you have an unaltered animal and you wish to purchase a 3-year license, you're going to be paying $30 more. So $10 a year basically is the difference going forward. Senior citizens do get the reduced rate, so it's half the price, and you can see that reflected as well. In the altered animals, what we have implemented or proposing at this time is under the current rate, it was basically each year you added the same value of a license, so as if you were purchasing 3 separate licenses. What we've done now is given a discount to people who buy a 3-year license. It benefits the city. We have less paperwork that we have to handle. The person doesn't have to turn stuff in as often. As long as their vaccination records are current, they'll see that benefit here, and that is for individuals who have altered animals. So we gave them that benefit going forward, and again, the reduced rate for senior citizens. You can see that reflected up there. We are also proposing, again, as things become more expensive, replacing duplicate licenses, doing a $2 increase for that actual license, and then on the senior citizen side, it's a $1 increase. Another category that we offer services in is that the animal control officers can come out to a residential home and retrieve a deceased animal for city residents. Or also we have gone in and found situations where there were multiple animals that weren't being cared for properly, and we did a removal at that point. For that, there is a fee that goes with that. We're looking to just minimally increase that, $4 for just one animal, leaving additional animals at $10. And then also if there is an injured animal, we had the ability to do euthanasia. At this point, we are still in discussions with the county regarding acquiring the medication needed for doing those euthanasias. So we're looking to keep that going forward, but that is something that's being discussed right now. And then also for our local veterinarians, we offer the service of picking up animals from them when their clients decide that they do not wish to pay for the disposal fees related to that animal. They don't go to the Humane Society or go to another service that's provided where their animals are cremated, et cetera. So the animal control officers will go out when they're requested, and they will pick up additional animals. One, at this point, we're proposing, again, just because it's approximately an hour's time for an animal control officer to go out, retrieve one animal, and get it out to the shelter for disposal there. We're increasing that by $30, and then each additional animal would still remain the same, so being consistent with that. And really, it's just a service that we offer to the veterinarians. I believe within the county, they have a program that's an outside vendor that now provides that service for them. But we would like to continue to offer that as a very reasonable service for the veterinarians who are caring for these. One thing that's new that we're proposing is there are 2 emergency vet clinics here in town who oftentimes, one in particular, often is given stray animals. People find them on the street, and they go and they find the emergency vet, and they say, here, I found this animal. And so currently what they do is they hold on to those animals. They'll scan them for chips. They'll see if there's an identifier on them, try to contact the owner. And that's even if the animal isn't injured. They've just been given an animal, said, hey, I found this kitten here. They will take care of that animal, attempt to locate if possible, and then will call us and say, hey, we've received an animal. We believe it was found in the city. They gave us this address. Animal control will go out and retrieve that animal. If it's not injured, they basically charge us a 24-hour boarding fee just for having that animal during the time that it was there and their attempts to find an owner. If the animal is injured, we have an agreement with them to pay a basic fee of $250. So that is to stabilize an animal if it's a significant injury, etc. It is always up to the veterinarian who is on staff, though, to make the decision of whether to euthanize or not. It's our animal control officers are not taking that on, but we're giving some basic service to be able to stabilize an animal and then decide what needs to happen from there. Additionally, if the animal is there for a couple days until we can actually take it to the shelter, depending on its types of injuries, we pay the boarding fee for that 24-hour period. So we do incur some costs, the $250 plus any days that the animal is there. What currently happens, though, is that if an owner is found, the owner never has to pay those fees back. And so we'd like to start to recover those fees if possible from animals that are returned to their owners. Those animals that are then given up for adoption and are never claimed by an owner, we would still be unable to collect those fees. But we're trying to just recover a little bit of that money that's going out the door in order to keep this program going. We're very fortunate that the veterinarians are doing this service for us because oftentimes they go a little bit beyond that $250, but they're willing to accept that as compensation for that service. Part of recapturing the funds for animals that are returned to owners is we're needing to work with county animal services because the animals are oftentimes returned to owners out there. And so we're working through a process of how to get that established so that when they come to retrieve, we know that they've paid their fees and that they can have their animal back. So that is a significant change in that we're just trying to recapture the fee that we actually expend. So basically on a as-needed basis. Dance permits this year, there are no significant changes. I just provided you the current information about the fees and rates that are being paid, just so that you could have a perspective on that. Driving under the influence response fees, this is a fee that we're allowed to charge for responding to an incident where it is called in. We're proposing a fee increase for this year, or for 2020 and for 2021, just an incremental increase again. Again, this really is staff response time to an incident, the varying levels of types of service, single officer needing to show up versus a full response by both police and fire for a traffic accident, et cetera. So that's the varying rates that go across there. Yeah.
Hi, sorry. So these fees are charged to the person that allegedly was...
Yes, driving under the influence.
Will these charges be made regardless of whether the DUI was found to be...
That is correct.
Okay, so if someone calls and the person was not driving under the influence, they will still be charged these fees?
No, you would have to, if you are arrested for driving under the... Yes, you have to be actually charged with those. Whether those charges are upheld or not does not impact this fee.
Ah, okay. So if the person's acquitted, for example, they still have to pay these fees?
They do, for responding. Now, this is different.
So if the person goes through and it turns out they were able, for whatever process, prove that they actually weren't driving under the influence, they'd still have to pay these?
Yeah. These fees are still due outside that process. These are not part of the litigation process or the criminal process. This is responding to the incident at hand.
I have a concern with that the initial call might have been for what the law enforcement would believe was a DUI, and then upon whatever process goes through, it turns out that wasn't the case, that we're basically charging somebody for something that wasn't true. Or not, I don't know if it was true, but it was not found to be the case. If they are found, yeah, I agree with that, but I just don't necessarily agree with charging someone for something that they go through the whole process and it's found that that wasn't the case. So I'm going to state my concerns with it now, and then it's going to come to the full council later, I understand.
Yeah.
So that's just, if there's some way we can reconcile that, or just have a better explanation, because I just have a hard time, and that's where I think you might have been going with it, 'cause I had the same question. I just have a hard time charging somebody a fee for something that they go through the whole court process and it turns out to be something different than what was initially called in.
Great. I'll get some additional information for that.
And if you don't mind, I want to go back to the dance permit slide. What is the difference between a nightclub permit and a live entertainment permit?
You happen to know the difference between the two?
And the reason I'm asking is then the renewal, there's actually a difference in the renewal rate for those two, even though the initial application's $1,200.
I'd want to get back to you on that. I believe it has to do with their ABC permit and the type and the variances that they're allowed within that permit.
Okay, thank you.
She forgot the mic.
Someone can answer.
Yeah, there. All right. Under alarm permits and false alarm fees. So annually, those who have alarm systems both on their businesses and residential, they pay a annual fee to have those systems registered with the city. And what that allows for is that the first two basically responses to a false alarm, there is no fee charged to those individuals for their false alarm. On the other hand, if you don't have a registered alarm with the city and we respond, what happens is those fees kick in immediately. So you no longer have basically a two freebie, and then false alarm fees kick in after that. The program is really to make sure that the systems are registered, that they're working effectively, that there aren't ongoing problems, and trying also to reduce the number of false alarms for some of these. Oops, keep going the wrong way. So as the slide shows, we're just increasing $5, $10, and $25 across the different categories. Again, those who've registered their alarms get the first two at no charge, and then 3, 4, and 5 going up from there, with the fifth maxing out at $250. For non-registered alarms, the fees start with the first one, and we're proposing a $65 fee, which is $10 increase. And then there was one typo on the fee schedule that was submitted, and the fifth and subsequent false alarm accidentally was typed in as $130, and it should actually be $250 to match the one above. So that's why that's highlighted, is that should have been $250 instead of $130. Under parade and special events, we're proposing the increases for special event fees and ABC permit endorsement fees. The special event permit fees would be going from $60 to $100, and the ABC permit endorsement fee would be going from $20 to $40. Again, just recognizing staff time spent reviewing the applications, making sure things are in order. Some events are larger, some are smaller, just kind of working out the average there for spending time reviewing that information. We're also upping in the police security reimbursement. So when we have staff that are at the county bowl or at Santa Barbara School District events, where they're hired to be there as part of quote-unquote security, we're looking to match the rates across the board better with what the actual pay is. And so that's what the change is there. We did a little increase on vehicles as well. Again, maintenance of vehicles and et cetera has gone up over the years, and these haven't been raised in probably 15 years. So we're trying to catch up on that one. The last change that we're proposing is in the parking violation section. We are proposing to increase all parking citations across the board by $2. This increase is to basically offset the increases in expenses that we've had for processing citations. Most often it's for those citations that end up going to late fees and collections and that area, because with each Like when the DMV, when they're sent to the DMV for collection, there's a fee that we pay the state for that. When they go to the Franchise Tax Board, we pay for that service as well. So in order to kind of help recoup those expenses, we're proposing $2 just across the board for all citations. The street sweeping program for street sweeping citations will receive that $2 increase instead of the police department. So kind of sharing that one there. And then one of the things that we recognize is that sometimes when you raise fees, it reduces people's interest in parking and getting a parking citation. So that may have an impact on the revenue that is brought in. But mostly we just want people to not get the tickets to start with in the especially in the time zones. So that's what we're proposing there. Overall, that change is estimated to be probably in the $70,000 range. It's not a huge financial increase for the department, but it does help recover some of those fees that we're already paying for. Live scans. So we provide the live scan services where people come in and basically get their fingerprinting. We're proposing to increase the fees just to have that service provided. It's called a rolling fee, which used to mean rolling your fingerprints, but it's still kept that name even though it's now a live scan. Nonprofits increasing theirs just by $2, and then all others by $5. Again, just for the staff time. We process about 1,600 applications a year for that kind of service. And so across the board, the proposed increases are really to help recover some of the expenses that staff has and for issuing permits, licenses, and citations. Do you have any questions?
So regarding the rolling fee, which now they could call it a smashing fee because they smash your thumb, we just had to go through it as members of the bar.
Right.
All members of the bar need to get fingerprinted. And so I think I paid $23 for my rolling fee. Did you guys do a market analysis to make sure you're not going too high where that 1,600 number might be reduced, or is that part of the goal?
So, and those rolling fees are separate actually from the Department of Justice fees that are required as well. So the fees for having whatever category, if it's FBI or DOJ, those are separate and those are state mandated funds. And so these fees are just the fee that you pay when you come in.
I was $84 out the door.
Right.
But the local institution collected 23 or 25.
Yeah, and ours is going from 12 to, or 10 for the nonprofits and going to 12 and from 25 to 30. So we're in the same range as the counties charging their services.
They're charging around 30. And then the private sector, they have mobile live scan and all these different services. We can be competitive even at a higher price point.
I think so. And part of what the feedback that I've gotten is the quality of the print that you get and how many times you have to submit.
You only have to do it once.
Yeah, and if what happens is if your prints don't go through, we will reprint and process it without that fee because we want it. She checks the quality to start with and try to get the best success rate, and then if there is an error, then we do provide the reprinting at no cost.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It's funny, Chair Dominguez, I was going to bring up that exact point, but to the opposite effect. And I know we both did our live scanning in different jurisdictions, and I was told actually that the fee was $35 where I did mine. So I was going to make the comment that we might be able to charge a little more. So maybe this
right in the middle there.
Yeah, you've split this baby perfectly.
Any other questions? Great.
Okay, we'll turn it over to the fire department next.
Good afternoon, Chair Dominguez, committee members. I'm Ron Lichty from the Fire Department, Business Manager, and I'm here to give a brief presentation on changes to Fire Department's proposed fees for the recommended 2020 budget. So I just wanted to begin taking an overview of fire department's revenues. And I wanted to show you that this chart is showing overall revenues, current year, what we're projecting for the year, and then next year's budget. And so we're projecting $4.9 million, almost $5 million to be received this year. That's $600,000 over our budget, and that's mainly due to mutual aid. This chart basically is comparing the recommended 2020 budget to the budget from 2019, and you can see there's a $70,000 increase. And what we'll be looking at particularly today is the highlighted item, which is the fees and service charges. And you can see we're actually recommending that decreasing by 1.4% to $2,500. And now we'll take a look at, and overall, the fees and service charges represent 4% of our revenues of our budget. So, a small piece. And so we'll take a closer look at fees and service charges and what that's comprised of on the next slide. So on this slide, our fees and service charges are really have about 5 categories. We have engine company inspections, building plan checks, land development team charges, Title 19 inspections, and permits we give out according to the California Fire Code. Like I said, we're decreasing the land development team charges just by $2,500. We get these numbers, actually these figures, from our community development department, and it's their projections and their recommendations, so we're incorporating them into the fire department budget. We have fire department members go to community development and review plans, and for land development team as well, so that's how we are involved with that process. All other fees revenues are projected to maintain their current levels. I did want to mention to you, though, we have not had a fee study for 15 years. So we have a new fire chief. He came in looking at our fees here, and he's recommending, and we received approval authority to get a fee study done. And like I said, it hasn't been done for about 15 years. And so we'll be contracting with the same firm that's been used by other city departments and through many agencies and municipalities throughout California. And we're looking to get that done here in the next fiscal year for recommended changes to the fiscal year 2021 budget. And then finally, I wanted to show you just what our fees, how our fees are changing. I have some sample fees here. And we're basically increasing our fees by basically the consumer price index, but it's the cost of our services are going up about 3.5%. So we're increasing our fees across the board by about 3% and rounded to the nearest dollar. And how that affects the public is one of our common fees are inspecting apartments and hotels, that first line for a quarter hour it takes, and we're recommending increasing the fee by $1 from $29 to $30.
Is that $29 per unit or per quarter hour?
Per quarter hour for that inspection.
So if you spend an hour and a half at a 6-unit building, it's going to be 6 times 29?
I'd have to check back with you on how we actually bill that, but I think that would be the case, yeah.
Because otherwise it seems low relative to the actual cost of providing that service. I mean, just rolling out the unit, if we look back at...
Precisely, and that's why we're going to be looking at that fee study is going to be looking at actual costs and what it costs to provide these services and restructuring our fees based on that.
And that study is coming to us now?
Oh, we're just contracting for it now, beginning it, and we're expecting that to happen probably before, be completed before December of this year, so that we have.
It won't impact this year's budget.
Not the 2020 budget, but we're thinking the 2021 budget.
So these changes are outside of that process?
These changes are just an annual change to. We've had increased cost for cost recovery. We're increasing our fees to match that. And that concludes my presentation for this afternoon. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
No questions, and we're glad to see you're not charging to put out fires.
Thank you so much.
Next.
Okay, our last department will be the Parks and Recreation Department.
Finance Committee Chair and members. I will talk through a few of our fee changes. We have 186 recreation program and facility fees, so we'd be here for a long time. I want to give you the highlights, which is what we do every year, and certainly the fees and charges that are part of your budget package goes into great detail. I'm happy to answer any further questions. So for fiscal year 2020, we're proposing 22 new fees, and I'll talk a little bit about some of them. Discontinuing 4 fees. We discontinue fees when the program's no longer offered, so therefore no reason to have a fee. Sometimes we eliminate fees because we determine that we don't need them again if a program's eliminated, or we might modify them, and then we're proposing moderate increases and decreases for about 60 of those fees. When we look at our fees every year, we consider a number of factors. One, how do we maximize participation and provide affordable programs? So that means we reduce fees in order to increase participation. We look at how the program provides the benefit to the community. We look at the target audience. Is it for youth? Is it for seniors? Is it for adults? And so fee decisions and fees comparisons and changes are made based on ability to pay, and then also who we're trying to serve. And then competition. We're not the only organization in town that provides a range of recreation services and facilities for rent. So we often look at our competitors and make sure we certainly aren't above them and often are actually more competitive. And then we have to consider cost recovery, particularly as it relates to our recreation programs and services. We look toward trying to cover at least 50% of our recreation program costs, so that happens in a number of different ways. One of the things that we do is we charge resident and non-resident rates. That has been in effect for, probably almost 2 decades, but we this year are proposing to standardize our nonprofit facility rates, irrespective of whether the nonprofit is based in the city of Santa Barbara or an unincorporated area. So they'd be the same. Some examples of our fee changes relate to nonprofit facility rentals, and I'll walk you through some of these to give you a sense of what they are. The change there is actually to decrease the cost for nonprofits to rent our facilities for between 7 and 30%. It depends on the location, and that brings it down below a private or commercial use of the facility. We have, in some cases, increases of up to 2% for indoor and outdoor facility rental rates, and really that has to offset the hourly cost, the staff that set up and break down the rooms. Sport field rental fees, proposing a 7% increase to help recover the costs of turf renovation and water. And an example of that is if you rent a sports field for 8 hours, instead of it costing $150, it's $160. So it's still fairly affordable for a full day. Tennis permit fees are going up slightly, in part related to market comparisons and then to support the facility. An example of that is for a full year, a senior will pay $125 to play as much tennis as they like in our facilities, and an adult would pay $139 for as much tennis as they would like. The annual pickleball permit fees, while 51 to 57% looks significant, in actual dollars, the seniors would be able to play as much pickleball as they like for $55 a year, and adults for $59 a year. So it's an increase. And that's something that our tennis recreation specialist worked with our pickleball advocates, and they support this fee change as well. Career recreation classes, we have some minor increases. A number of our classes also increase as a result of the contractors that we hire. They seek to increase fees, and we get a percent of what they charge. Annual arts and crafts show memberships, 3%. It would go from $265 to $272. And then our nonprofit lease rate is proposed to increase 2%. Every year it increases just slightly. So it goes from $1.36 per square foot to $1.39 per square foot would be the proposal for next year. The fees that I would like to draw the Finance Committee's attention to relate to the Cabrillo Pavilion. The building's been closed since December 2017. It will reopen in October, and so as part of our preparing for this next 2-year budget cycle, we completed our business plan and looked at our fee structure and are proposing new fees related to the pavilion, but then also related to the bathhouse level entry, the ocean beachside entry of the building. And similar to what we do elsewhere, we looked carefully at what other similar venues charge. What they charge for an 8-hour rental is the easiest way to compare, and some of them only charge for an 8-hour rental. You either get it for the day or you can't go in for an hour. And then we set our fees based on prime time versus less than prime time and versus non-prime time. So as you can see from the slide, we're proposing a Saturday rate of $4,400, which actually the Saturday rates, as you can see, are slightly higher than they were for other days. Those are generally the most popular. We will have a 100% refurbished building on the beach available for families and private parties and various other events to rent. When we look at that fee, we're actually very much in line with what it would cost you to go to the zoo, for example. But in the case of the Cabrillo Pavilion, you don't have to use the on-site caterer. You have more flexibility, whereas if you go to the zoo, you use Rincon Catering. And then as you look at the other fees, Monday through Thursday, reduced, and then an hourly with a minimum 2-hour rental. We have a number of different groups that would come in, have in the past, and we hope they come back, where they do their monthly business meetings or their monthly coordinating meetings. At the ocean level, we have a multi-purpose room that'll be available for use for nonprofits and private rentals, and the fee is $31 to $45 depending on the date of the week as well. And then we're also planning to put out an RFP to have someone operate the multi-purpose fitness room, and looking at charging a square foot fee for that as a way to advance revenue from that area. And then in the daily entry fee, it depends on whether it's a child, senior, adult, or a family member. And then we also have a pass system that we're proposing, similar to the pass system that we use for Los Baños. So buying a pass gives you unlimited amount of entry, and a day fee would serve perhaps the casual beachgoer who's visiting Santa Barbara and they want a place to spend the day with their family, the ability to take a shower, to put things in a locker, that kind of thing.
Zachary, I have a question. Is the multi-purpose room different from the fitness room?
Yes, it is different. The fitness room is a room where we are hoping to have private trainers train people, but then also have classes. The multi-purpose room is a new room, one of the things we didn't have in the building before renovation began, and that's actually located on the eastern side of the building, sort of northeast corner where the men's shower locker facility used to be.
And so will one of those have classes like dance class or?
It could very well. That room could be used for a training program. It could be used for a small group gathering. It could be used for a yoga class. It could be used for any number of things. It's designed to be multi-purpose.
And then the fitness room will have equipment in it as well?
Yes, the fitness room will be partially with equipment. We need a little bit of space for people if they want to actually do strength training and that kind of thing, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, that concludes the fees that we wanted to present to you today.
No questions. So at this point, is there any public comment? No public comment. Any discussion from committee members? Anything else from staff? If not, I'll ask for a recommendation to send this to the full council with our approval.
So move.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.